you can rest. And everything that's going to happen for you is still going to happen for you.
Now, my appointment was done at least 15 minutes ago, okay? However, I am still sitting in my car. Why? Because it is a form of self-care. The reason it's self-care for me is because A, I get to have some quiet time, okay? Before I go out here into the world, I get to have a little time for me. B, I get to be still, okay? When you're always moving and grooving, it's nice sometimes just to be still and do nothing. C, my car feels like a warm hug, a safe space somehow, because I can share things out loud. I can talk through things without judgment because nobody else is here but me. And D, not a damn thing matters when I'm sitting here taking some time for myself. And I love that for me, because one thing I'm going to do is give the world what I can, but not all I got, okay? That's really why I love sitting in my car as a form of self-care, okay? Because this isn't rocket science. You just got to be intentional about how you take care of you. So if you like to sit in your car as a form of self-care, let me know in the comments, because I want to know where my tribe is. And you might want to share this with somebody else who needs a little car therapy too, okay? And on that note, stay healthy, be well, and take care of you.
There is just something about sitting in your car to decompress that is like the ultimate self-care practice. Sometimes it's listening to music. Sometimes it's just sitting in silence. Does anybody else just love a good car therapy session? Hey ladies, I'm Tiffany Celeste. Welcome back to your Wellness Era channel. Today we're diving deep into what real self-care actually means and exploring how it differs from what you might see displayed all over social media. Most of us have seen self-care as pampering or overindulgence with a big focus on capitalism or consumerism. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with going out to get a mani or a pedi, a facial or a massage, or even buying your favorite perfume. And it's okay to pamper yourself. But so many of us have felt like we cannot get self-care right or don't have time for self-care because we're focused on the aesthetic of self-care and thinking we have to spend a lot of time or money to make self-care look a certain way. I remember I was scrolling on either Instagram or TikTok, and there was like this beautiful bathroom, and this woman was, pouring all these bath salts and bath powders and all these bath bombs into the water. There had to be at least like 5 or 6 like bath powders and salts that she had put in the tub. The bathroom was beautiful. The aesthetic was very nice, but I'm like, there is no way that can be safe for your lady parts. If you know, you know. I'm like, all of that powder is definitely going to throw off your pH. So we see things like that all over social media. And honestly, that's not what self-care is. Self-care goes way beyond spa days or bubble baths. It's about something far more personal and sustainable, in my opinion. And most people don't know this, but the term self-care was actually coined by the medical and mental health fields back in the 1950s as a way to encourage patients to maintain their health, their autonomy, and by managing chronic illnesses and mental health conditions, as well as helping patients take personal steps to support their own physical and emotional well-being. A lot of us are of the mindset that self-care is like this new age thing that was developed in the 2000s, but it's actually been around for quite some time. The deeper meaning of self-care has always been about maintaining your well-being and finding agency and creating boundaries that support your mental and emotional health. And it wasn't until actually the late 1990s and early 2000s that the term self-care began to intersect more heavily with consumerism. Brands started marketing products like luxury skincare, spa treatments, and wellness retreats as forms of self-care. And the focus shifted from holistic self-care practices to self-care aesthetics and consumerism, which is what I define as faux self-care. I haven't spoken much about my background on this channel, but I'm also a self-care and wellness coach. And if you want, you can find me on Instagram at Tiffany Celeste to find out more about that. I define self-care in my own life as the internal process of setting boundaries, learning to treat myself with compassion, making choices that bring me closer to myself, and living a life aligned with my values. And anyone that knows me knows that I talk about boundaries and values a lot. I love a conversation about values and boundaries because it's very important and it will always set you up for success. And while my definition of self-care may sound simple, it's actually practicing it that takes intentional effort. If you haven't heard of Dr. Pooja Lakshmin, she wrote this beautiful book titled Real Self-Care, where she explores this concept so well. She offers really deep insights on how self-care should be meaningful, deep, and most of all, value-based. I want to introduce you to her book, Real Self-Care, and I will have it linked for you in the description box below. This book will completely change your life and how you take care of you. I also have my free self-care quiz if you want to discover your own self-care profile and get insights into your self-care habits, values, and boundaries. So sit back and listen in on how other grown women are navigating self-care in their lives, and stay until the end, and I'll be back with additional thoughts and practical insights for your self-care journey as a grown woman.
Hey sis, I know what you got going on. I know your workload is heavy. I know the home load is heavy. But listen, I have 3 things that are going to help you to actually start making time for self-care. It is time to be non-negotiable with your self-care. And that's on living a long, healthy life. That's not on surface level, hair, nails. All that is great. But listen, your life is important. No matter what circumstances you have, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a corporate girly, you have kids, no kids, whether you're single, married, taken, situationship, whatever it is, I'm speaking to the woman in you. The woman in you needs you to care for you. And I got 3 ways that you can actually start making time for self-care, no matter your circumstance. Number 1, everybody has a calendar. Same way that we plug in our meetings for work and important obligations and bills and due dates, I need you to add your self-care into your calendars. These days we know if it's not written down, it's probably not getting done. The importance of actually writing out your self-care, what's happening is that you're now giving it value. Before, when something is just spiraling around in your mind, it doesn't necessarily have value. When something has value, when something has meaning, you write it down. That 1, you can remember it, and 2, it gets done. It could be a 5-minute walk, 5 minutes breathing, or a solo vacation. Okay, sis, write it down. 2, I hear all the time about what we don't have time to add into our schedule because we don't have the capacity. Well, I'm not here to tell you to add anything, sis. I'm here to tell you, start leveraging the time that you already have. What I mean by this is we gotta do things like take a shower, wash our face, brush our teeth, put on clothes. There are certain activities that we have to do. How many times have you been in the shower but not really been in the shower? Sometimes we're in the shower, sis, physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we're back at the office, 2 hours ahead, in the living room, cooking dinner, trying to decide what to eat and what to feed everybody, and then we're in tomorrow even. I need you to just be where you are. If you are in the shower, leverage that time, sis. You're not rocking a child to sleep when you're in the shower. You're not over the stove while you're in the shower, and you're not in your office when you're in the shower. You're in the shower, so be where you say you are. Leverage that time. Notice your 5 senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you feel like to be in a shower? What does it smell like to be in a shower? Number 3, please know that self-care is not one size fits all. I think too many of us are actually feeling discouraged about self-care, and we quit, and we actually just don't end up doing it because we are trying to apply a shoe to our foot that's not ours. Decide for yourself, what is your unique, specific need for self-care? What does that look like? Because what my self-care is may not be what your self-care is. And there's so much self-care that's going viral online right now that because it sounds good and it looks good, we're trying to apply it, but it's not aligning with our lifestyle. So make sure that one, you are able to identify what type of self-care is needed, because for some of us, we need leisure and surface level self-care. We need that time to go and get pampered. We need that time to feel good and go on vacation. But some of us need radical self-care, creating boundaries, saying no, going to bed sooner, waking up earlier, no longer snoozing your alarm clock, time management, the habits that you're continuously doing that is actually getting you further and further away from being the best version of yourself. For some of us, self-care may look like going on a solo vacation. For others, it might look like sleeping when the baby's sleeping. If you're a mom and you're trying to force yourself into a state of self-care where it's consisting of adding more and more things into your schedule and trying to find time to go to Mexico and live your best life on a yacht, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So maybe your self-care looks like setting boundaries with yourself, to sleep when the baby's sleeping, be at home resting instead of going out, time away from certain people and places to make sure that you are self-preserving. I hope that helps, sis.
Self-care has nothing to do with bubble baths. It goes so much deeper and more important than that. I learned this from my friend, Dr. Pooja Lakshmin. In fact, Dr. Pooja, can you explain what self-care really is?
Real self-care isn't actually about the bubble bath. It is the decision-making process that happens before the bubble bath. It's not about the yoga class. It's the why behind the yoga class. Why do you love yoga? What does it do for you? That's the real self-care piece. So it's less about the thing and more about the process you do internally to get you there.
It's not about the thing that you're doing. It's about the reason why you're doing it, to take care of yourself. And that's just the beginning of so much wisdom that I just learned from Dr. Pooja.
Real self-care is an internal process of 4 principles. We see the term self-care show up all the time on social media. People are talking about yoga, meditation, juice cleanses, diets. The thing is that is actually faux self-care. It's a superficial type of self-care. And it's not necessarily bad, it's just that those are methods that you do on the outside. Real self-care is an internal process of 4 principles: boundaries, compassion, values, and power. When you're practicing these principles, you're making internal changes that then will be manifested outward. So the most important part of this whole thing is boundaries. Boundaries are the backbone of everything that you do for your own well-being. Your boundary is the pause. And then you always have 3 choices: yes, no, or negotiate. When you learn to set the boundary and pause, then you're actually taking ownership and agency over your life.
This book overall has a lot of like diagnostic tools as well as things you can apply to your life if you want to be doing real self-care instead of faux self-care. But I'm just going to focus on a theoretical framing and some of the ethics because I'm interested in ethics always. So one thing that Dr. Lakshmin does, which I think is really right and very smart, is distinguishes between self-care techniques and principles of self-care. I'm seeing a lot of this in my own research. We are drawn to methods and techniques in some ways as quick fixes. We think if we just find the right diet, the right exercise routine, the right journaling, whatever that method is, that will be equated to real wellness and happiness. And she sort of calls out some of the quick fixes that are like really popular, like going on retreat. And Dr. Lakshmin's like, just like warning that is a temporary method fix. It's not necessarily applying principles of real self-care and wellness to your life. So I think a really interesting question is, what would it look like if instead of pursuing these quick fixes, these techniques and methods, what would it look like to think about the principles of self-care and wellness, and how would that have us engage these techniques and methods differently? And Dr. Lakshmin gives us an answer very similar to the way that an ethicist would give an answer. It's very similar to the answer that I would give. She talks about the difference of goals versus values. Goals will be things that you hit, that you think if you hit that thing, you achieve that goal, then you are healthy, then you are well, then you're happy. In your work life, that might mean the promotion. In your physical life, that might be some like weight goal. She's really encouraging us to think much more about the values. What are your core values? What is a good life to you? What would be the values that would be embodied in that life? And thinking about, small decisions, big decisions, making those with those values in mind. The journey towards, not just the end goal, is where you find self-care and where you really find happiness and well-being. I think that's really smart.
How I got a lot of beef with self-care, with its goopification. Like, I got a lot of direct beef with goop in particular, but goopification more broadly, that would be something I would call the social process of turning self-care into a consumerist performance. I just defined goopification. There you are. I'm going to claim that term.
3 things I'm learning through my 40s about self-care. First, that is to give to myself from a surplus and not just what's left over. So that means I have to be intentional about filling my cup every day. The second would be consistently working through my emotions versus suppressing them or ignoring them. And lastly, I would say being okay with the moments that I need to pace myself rather than push myself. We're all navigating this human experience and learning along the way.
Here's what I've learned about self-care in your 30s, and spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with pampering yourself. Self-care is realizing if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Self-care is prioritizing the family you created versus the one you came from. Self-care is letting go of the obsession of climbing the corporate ladder. Self-care is embracing the soft life where peace and ease are non-negotiable. Self-care is releasing the burden of trying to solve everyone's problems and focus on your own well-being. Self-care is about making choices that nourish your soul and protect your peace, because when you're thriving, everything else around you thrives too.
We're raised to think, oh, if I take care of everybody else, I'm a good person. You know what I mean? I put myself last. A lot of women are in my family, that's how we were raised, especially Latinos. Like, everybody comes before you. I'm last. I'll eat last. I'll get dressed last. I didn't even take a shower. It's fine. That's how you're raised. And you come to the realization that, oh, it's not that. Like, I actually have to take care of myself so I can take care of everybody else better.
I myself fell into this belief system that self-care was me taking myself to my manicure and pedicure appointments, getting my eyebrows waxed, getting my hair done. I was starting to organize my life around what I thought was my self-care practice. Like, this is how a woman takes care of herself. You can't sacrifice these things, Amanda. I even remember having thoughts that, well, I can't get that pedicure and then meet on the beach for a walk after that because the pedicure may not have fully set yet and I might get sand on my brand new pedicure. And it's been over a decade since I started examining this whole idea of self-care, because what I was starting to feel was like, oh, another appointment I have to go to. I really had to get honest with myself and start asking myself, if we're talking about self-care and this isn't feeling good to me, am I really participating in self-care? Self-care to me has taken on a completely new form, so much so that all the things that I now understand were maintenance appointments for me are no longer fulfilling. I don't go to any of them because I have felt that they actually distract from my life. They take away from my free time when I'm not working or I'm not spending it with my family. So for me, what feels like self-care is when I am taking care of myself. In that, for me, it's a long, warm bath. It is time with me and my journal. It is time where I am dancing in the mirror to some of my favorite songs, my favorite music. It may be me throwing myself back on a comfortable chair and calling my best girlfriend and getting lost for hours in the conversation. So I really think it's an interesting concept for us to look at how we have been possibly sold the idea that self-care is when you take yourself somewhere, you open your wallet and you pay somebody else to do some kind of a treatment to you. Self-care to me is when you do the simplest of rituals for yourself. And when you've completed a self-care task, it's this feeling of like, oh, so full, so fulfilled.
How do you define self-care? Basically, when you think of self-care, what does it mean to you? Is it bubble baths, manicures, trips to Target? Or is it setting up your future self for success, which doesn't always feel self-care-ish in the moment? And to be clear, I think it can be both. Self-care absolutely includes treating yourself and spoiling yourself a bit. But self-care at its core is setting up your future self for success. Things like meal prep, getting to bed early, staying on top of your laundry. Self-care is making it easier for future you to be good to herself. Self-care is doing things for yourself now that will help you keep your shit together later, so you don't feel overwhelmed or burdened by daily responsibilities or tasks. If you're feeling a little scattered or all over the place, focus on some true self-care and spend some time today doing things that'll make it easier for yourself tomorrow.
5 ways to practice self-care that you might have forgot about, or maybe you're just not doing. Because we know this is an important part of being a bad bitch. Work on getting enough sleep. Put that phone away before bed, girl. I'm working on it myself. I'm not gonna lie. Create a wind down routine. I currently have one. It's the best thing ever. I use my Alexa. It plays rain sounds. At 9 o'clock, she says, Chidi, you've done a great job. Let's go to bed. And that's when I start to unwind and separate myself from my day. Get in the gym, girl. Okay, you don't have to get in the gym, but physical activity is a must for self-care and upkeep. You could be doing yoga, Pilates, taking walks in the park, running, but you need physical activity because it reduces stress, relieves anxiety, and it overall just puts you in a good mood. Skincare and body care. A must. Get you a little bubble bath, do a face mask, body scrub, face scrub. You need to take care of your skin and enjoy your time while you're doing it. Girl, you deserve it. You've been working hard. Even if you haven't been working hard, you still deserve it. You know what I'm saying? Set those boundaries and stick to them. Learning to say no and prioritize your mental health, your positive energy, and what serves you is an amazing way to practice self-care for bad bitches. Do those hobbies and activities you love to do, girl. Why are you not painting? Why are you not reading that book that you bought? Why are you not taking time to enjoy the things that you enjoy? Doing things that bring you joy allows you to be present. It's a stress reliever, and they just make you happy overall. Who doesn't want to be happy? Garden, dance, DIY projects. I love those. I love to feed my inner child when I'm doing my hobbies and activities. It just makes me happy. Like, I'm just chill. I grab some wine, I paint. It's the best thing ever.
You take care of yourself before you try to give the world something. I had to take care of myself so I could come back even stronger.
So what do you think? Do you have a different perspective of what self-care looks like for you? For me, aligning self-care with my values means asking the tough questions. What do I truly need right now? Where do I feel unfulfilled? Are there boundaries I need to set in my life to protect my mental space? Real self-care for me might mean saying no more often to things that don't align with my values and boundaries, even if it's uncomfortable. It could look like me saying no to going out and instead dedicating time to a passion that brings me closer to myself, or setting limits on relationships that drain me, or even giving myself permission to rest without feeling guilty. One of the biggest distinctions for me between real self-care and faux self-care is the focus on values. When we prioritize activities that are in line with our values, it feels different. Instead of a quick fix, there's a sense of groundedness and fulfillment. In my opinion, it's about creating a self-care practice that feels authentic and meaningful, rather than one that only gives surface level comfort. That's why I always encourage a values-based self-care practice, because that keeps us connected to the things that give our lives meaning. Without it, it's easy to fall into routines that might feel good for a while but don't truly sustain us. I think that when you're grounding your self-care in your values, we can stay true to what matters even when life is lifing. When self-care is tied to your values, it stops being about fixing yourself or constantly improving something. Instead, it becomes about honoring yourself and your needs in an authentic way. You don't need to buy into the myth that self-care is only about consuming or adding more. Real self-care can be as simple as doing less, simplifying, and just being. I want to encourage you to reflect on your own self-care practices. Are they in line with your values? Are they helping you get closer to who you are and the life that you want to lead? Real self-care might be quieter, less glamorous than what you've been sold online, but it's where the true peace and fulfillment lies. If you're ready to take a deeper look at your life and your priorities, I highly recommend reading Real Self-Care by Dr. Pooja, Lakshmin, and take my free self-care quiz to dive deeper into your own self-care habits, boundaries, and values. It's a great first step to crafting a self-care practice that's truly authentic to you. Let me know in the comments your perspective on self-care. What does real self-care look like for you? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.